Hey everyone, if you've been following the last two videos, you've noticed that the message of Malachi has a lot to teach us about living in obedience to God and the blessings that come with it. But it doesn't stop there. Malachi also speaks about the role of Israel, and now ours as an example to the world, showing God's justice and goodness. Let's continue exploring how this brings transformation to us and the community around us, as well as the hope of restoration that God promises even in difficult times. Have you ever thought about how your life could be a reflection of something much bigger? A light to those around you, not only transforming your life, but also the life of those near you? In the book of Malachi, we find a message that is not just about Israel's past, but a powerful truth for us today. What Malachi says is simple. When we live according to God's standards, our life becomes a testimony, a light to the world. Let's explore what this means and how we can apply it in our daily lives. When God calls his people to obedience, he's not just talking about personal blessings. He's inviting us to be a light to the world. Israel, in its faithfulness to God, was meant to be a model of justice and prosperity, something that would draw nations to know and worship God. This also applies to us today. When we live according to divine standards, our life becomes a reflection of God to those around us. Imagine, your way of living, acting with justice and mercy, could be the gateway for others to encounter God's love. But here's the great beauty of it all. Restoration is not just individual. God calls us to be part of something bigger, a community of blessings. The call to obedience and justice is not just for me, it's for everyone. When one person aligns with God's principles, the whole community benefits. And when the community as a whole lives this way, the impact is transformative. If you're seeking change in your life and community, remember, God wants to use you as a channel of blessings. Of course, the Bible also speaks of God's judgment. Malachi talks about the day of the Lord, a moment of final justice, where the wicked will be judged and the righteous rewarded. It's a day of separation. Those who remained faithful to God will be spared, but those who chose to live in sin and injustice will face the consequences of their choices. But don't be misled. This judgment is not meant to scare us, but to call us to reflection. God, in his justice, corrects what is wrong, but at the same time offers hope and salvation for those who are faithful to him. And here comes the true beauty, the sun of justice. Malachi gives us an incredible image. Speaking of a sun that rises to bring light and healing, this sun is in fact a reference to Jesus Christ. He is the Messiah, the one who brings true justice and salvation. When he came into the world, he brought the light that dispelled the darkness and offered us salvation and healing. For the righteous, this light is a source of joy and freedom, like calves released from the stall, a symbol of abundant life. Have you ever wondered how these promises are fulfilled? Malachi looked to the future and gave us a vision of the coming of Christ. He didn't just speak about judgment, but pointed to the coming of Jesus, who is the Son of Justice. The death and resurrection of Jesus fulfilled the promises God made to his people and expanded those blessings to all nations. It's no longer just about Israel, it's about all of us. And this brings a wonderful hope. Salvation is now available to anyone who believes, whether Jew or Gentile. Even knowing the severity of judgment, Malachi's promises invite us to live with hope. For the righteous, the day of the Lord is not a day of fear, but of celebration and liberation. When we remain faithful to God, we can be sure that our faithfulness will be rewarded. And this future expectation gives us strength to keep moving forward. No matter how tough things may seem now, we know that God's justice will prevail. I know sometimes what happened with Israel in the past may seem distant, but the message of Malachi is still so relevant to us today. Many modern churches are dealing with a problem called spiritual apathy, when people get used to religious routines and forget the true purpose of their faith. Malachi calls us to reassess our spiritual lives, to break free from apathy and return to genuine commitment to God. Spiritual apathy is something we should avoid at all costs. Just as Israel offered empty sacrifices, without heart, we often fall into the temptation of living a superficial faith. But God doesn't want us to just fulfill religious obligations. He desires a living and dynamic relationship with us. It starts with sincere prayer, studying the scriptures, and genuine involvement with the community. We want to live in a way that our offerings and devotion to God are true, not only in financial terms, but in every area of our life. Finally, one of the most powerful messages of Malachi: God does not change. He is always faithful and ready to restore. No matter where you are now or how far you've drifted, God always offers the opportunity to start over. Restoration is available to all who turn to Him with a sincere heart. Malachi's message is an invitation to spiritual renewal, where true life and God's blessings can be found again. So what does all this mean for us today? The message of Malachi challenges us to live with purpose, being a light to the nations around us. When we live in obedience to God, our life becomes a reflection of His justice, His faithfulness, and His love. But it also invites us to reflect on our relationship with God. He calls us to avoid spiritual apathy and offers us the opportunity for restoration at any time. How will you respond to God's call today? Remember, restoration begins with a sincere heart before Him. Let's together be agents of change and blessing to the glory of God. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and share it with someone who needs to hear this message of hope. Let's reflect together on how we can live faithfully and impact the world around us.